nice. Get set up here. I'm Moshe, and this is my channel. I'm in the Galilee of Israel. You probably read about that in your Bible. And I lived here many years, and I'm going to discuss the very recent developments in the war against Hamas and Lebanon, and the war about to start with America and Iran. I'll start off by saying it's highly likely that America, with or without Israel, will attack. I put these on to reduce strain on my eyes. They relax my eyes. They're polarized and they help. Anyway, just before I get started, I just want to tell you that I will show you why I believe that America will attack Iran at about the same time Israel attacks Lebanon. I mean, full-bore attack, like bomb Beirut and all that, okay? Beirut's the capital. So today is the 13th of November. It's a Monday. It's 9:17 in the morning. Our weather is going to be a little tweaked up today. It'll hit a high of 84, and it'll be a low in the 60s, and then it's going to cool off again tomorrow. It actually rained a little this morning, but not enough to make me go inside. I was just sitting outside. It didn't really affect me. It was just like light drizzle kind of thing. But it's showing us that the winter is here. It's around the corner. I mean, it might take another week or two till it sets in, but I'm used to understanding the winters here from when I lived here many years ago. It would be like Thanksgiving to mid-February. That's typical of what you get for the winter. And it's getting a late start this year. I mean, 84 degrees now. I mean, it's pretty warm, So anyway, I'm appreciating it. I put my sweatshirts on and go outside, and it's nice. Okay. I've got a great patio I could sit under when it's raining, and it's metal, so you hear the rain hitting the roof. It's nice. All right. Let me take a quick look into the chat. Make sure, the live stream, chat, whatever you want to call it, make sure it's running correctly. Look into the chat. Make sure, the live stream, chat, whatever you want to call it. California, I know where that is. I lived in California many years. Why I don't see the chat here. California, I know where that is. I lived in California many years. Why I don't see the chat here. All right, let me get going here. Do my little housekeeping chores in the chat after I make sure we got sound and picture, which we do. And this gives people a chance to come in. They get notices, they got to see the notice, then they got to come in. And I feel it's more appropriate to work on Israeli time rather than, some other country, because that's what this is about, Israel. All right, let me get back. Almost done. Okay. We'll get started. 1 or 2 days, I think it was yesterday, the Hezbollah, when I say Lebanon, the Lebanese regular army is not very interested in having a war with Israel at all, and I don't think they will. They told the world, or America and Israel, that they had a choice. Either they start a civil war with Hezbollah, which would go on for years, or, and probably they were afraid they'd lose, or they hunker down and let the Americans attack Lebanon, which will be over quickly. This is my favorite cayenne pepper sauce, and it doesn't have alcohol. It's the drink mix, and it has no alcohol, and it has a lot of cayenne. That's nice. I like it. It's very hard to get. They get it in Israel, and then you don't see it for months. That's a problem. It might be my last bottle. I got to look around. They might have another bottle. It's a shame. I love it. They sent what's called guided missiles into Israel, and the way our anti-missile systems work, Iron Dome and the others, David Slings and all that, is they plot with the computer the path of the missile where it's likely to land. And now that only works when it's very, very close to us. And when they see where it's going to land, if it's going to hit in an open field, they don't shoot it down. If it's going to hit someplace critical and cause damage, they shoot it down. And we're doing very well these days in shooting the missiles down. We may have run low or out of Iron Domes early in the war. I don't know, because we weren't doing so good, but now we're doing better. They try to do swarm attacks to overwhelm our defenses. The Houthi rebels shot from Yemen. They're Iran satellites or puppets. So the three puppets that we're experiencing problems from mostly is Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iranian puppet. Hamas in Gaza, Iranian puppet, and the Houthis in Yemen. Now, there are Iraqi militias, various militia groups that are satellites or puppets of Iran operating in Iraq and Syria, and they don't really do too much against us. Syria's a mess right now. There's forces fighting against Bashar Assad. Then there's ISIS there doing who knows what. Turkey is fighting against the Kurds. The Americans have numerous bases in Iraq and Syria near the oil fields doing I don't know what. I don't know what, protecting the oil, I don't know. And there's Iraqi militias that are with the IRGC, which are Iranian regular troops. The IRGC, you could say, is Iranian army, okay? They get a paycheck from the government of Iran. They're direct employees of the Iranian government. They're in Syria, and they're on the side of Bashar Assad. Russia's in Syria, and they're on the side of Bashar Assad. But Russia is unlikely to seek involvement in this because they'll just get wiped off the map in Syria. But I expect that will happen. The Russians maintain a navy base in a part of Syria called Latakia, or you could say Latakia, I don't know, on the coast of the Mediterranean, and that is a problem for NATO, and America is in NATO, because they don't want that. If the fight goes to NATO versus Russia over Ukraine, they don't want Russia having a navy base there, so this base is probably going to go. Israel bombs the Aleppo airport, Damascus airports with pretty regularity. to stop Iran from transferring weapons into Syria. If they can't land the planes, they can't get in. So they started using the Russian air base, which is very close, probably 5-10 kilometers or something like that, 15, from the Latakia Navy base. And Russia didn't keep many planes there until the war started with Hamas, and then they brought more planes in. And they're fighting the forces trying to push Assad, Bashar Assad, the ruler of Syria, out of office. Okay, so Syria is such a mess, you need a scorecard to try to figure out what's going on and who's fighting who. If Syria gets into the war against America, against Israel or America, the rebel forces opposing Bashar Assad intend to attack the militias attacking Israel to get rid of them, because they're friendly with Bashar Assad, and to get rid of the Syrian government, because Syria has been undergoing a civil war for a good 10 years or more. And he's displaced a good 2 million people and probably killed 500,000 people in the civil war. So, I mean, he sits there and criticizes Israel. Come on, it's a joke. It's a farce. Okay. He's in a very unique subset of Muslims. So he's kind of out in left field a little bit. He's not just a Shiite or a Sunni. He's a subset of one of them. I forget which one. Probably Shiite. The Sunnis don't think that they should be attacking Israel. The Quran mentions in a place, I put it on my Telegram site, that it names Israel and Israel. So they feel that it's stupid to try to run Israel off that land. It's against the teachings of the writer of the Quran, which I believe is Muhammad. Quran's not the Bible, has nothing to do with the Bible. Okay? All right. So, they're not too enthusiastic about getting into this death match that Iran is trying to project. Now, Iran is working with China and Russia. They have mutual defense treaties. Okay? The idea is to draw America into a snare, and that's found in Jeremiah 50, verse 24, which is referencing Daughter of Babylon, which is the Star Spangled Banner. Okay, I'll read that to you. Okay. I have laid a snare for thee, speaking of Daughter of Babylon, America, and thou art also taken, O Babel. It says Babylon in the English. The real word is Babel, which means confusion. O Babel, and thou wast not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against Jehovah. Now, we don't have to debate America's policies compared to the Bible. We don't need to go there. It's obvious. So Russia has moved many troops and military equipment into Kaliningrad, which is a little piece of land that I don't even know if it's the size of Rhode Island, and that Russia calls Mother Russia. It's part of their turf. It's recognized as their turf. And it's right near Poland in the Ukraine area. Okay. And they also have Belarus, which is right by Kaliningrad, and that's a outright Russian ally, and it's full of Russian military everything. And it's right by Ukraine. So Poland is the country that the NATO allies bring war equipment into by air. And then Poland transfers the equipment by land into Ukraine, which uses it against Russia, which has made this war drag out. But let's look behind the curtain here. What Russia is doing is getting the NATO allies to use up their backup military equipment inventory and give it to Ukraine. And it gets used up. They got to bring equipment in at least every month, if not more frequently, or Ukraine will run out and then Russia will overrun them. And Russia would be very happy to overrun them and conquer Ukraine, and then he would go after Poland. He also will go for Moldova, probably Georgia, and then eventually Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Latvia, Lithuania, and he'll be pretty well towards rebuilding the old USSR geographically, which is what he's interested in. He wants to keep massive land masses, okay, on the west of Russia in Eastern Europe, west of Russia, Eastern Europe. Not really Eastern Europe, but he wants, to have a few thousand miles of land that he conquers, so the enemy, which is NATO to him, cannot easily come into Russia to attack. I'll explain. Their missiles may not reach, if they got to go another 1,500 miles before they get to the Russian border, it's going to hurt the missile attacks. And the aircraft would have to fly over this new geography Russia added in, and they would get shot down, or at least attacked. And Russia would have a tremendous warning that missiles and aircraft are coming towards Mother Russia. Now, we have not seen Russia use their good troops in Ukraine. They're using new draftees. They're using they have a few as advisors and leaders, but they're generally not putting their good troops into Ukraine. They're keeping them at home. They're saving them for the next act. Okay? And are they using their good equipment in Ukraine? Probably to a point, but not a lot. They just broke out 3,000 or so tanks they had in storage, old tanks, and got them, they got to lube them and, open the engines, get everything going. And that's probably already happened, and they put those in Ukraine. So Russia is having a problem with America, NATO, UK dumping all kinds of weapons, France, Italy, Germany, Norway, Romania, they're all dumping weapons into Ukraine. And it's causing Russia's weapons reserves and ammunition, artillery, missiles, and all that to be drawn down and drawn down and drawn down and drawn down. And that is America and NATO prepping Russia for an attack because they know Russia's plans and intentions. Okay? And Russia knows this is going on. Okay? Russia has been busted up with sanctions severely. Okay, they hurt. Have they disabled Russia? No. Are the Russian people going hungry? No. Okay? But bank transfers from other countries aren't working. Russia's got a major headache from the sanctions. It's not at this point in danger of going under. But bear in mind, the sanctions run long enough, Russia's going to have a problem. Let's do our praise. I didn't do that yet. We're a Bible-believing channel. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 There's no Messiah like Yeshua. There's no Messiah like Yeshua. Okay. So Russia got put in the sanctions prison, let's call it that, by America. And it hurts. Okay? And Trump started with the sanctions, and Biden followed suit. Okay? So what Russia wants to do is end the grip on the world that America has. Because America is going to Russia and China too, as we'll talk about, and telling them, you dance to our music or we put sanctions on you. And the sanctions are punishing. This BRICS thing they started, it helps, but it's not the end of the world. I mean, it's not the breakout. It's not getting them out of it. And there's not that many nations in BRIC right now, whether there's 10 or something like 12, I don't know. Not many. Okay? They're trading with each other using their own currencies, not American dollars, is the big deal there. They never came out with their gold-backed currency for international trade that they said they would. They said they were going to create a system like SWIFT for money transfers internationally. And that never came to pass yet. So it's not really cutting it for them. Okay? The plan behind BRICS would be to build BRICS up to probably 25 or 30 or 40 nations. And then the members in BRICS would be leaned on by China and Russia to form a NATO, where they all contribute a certain amount of boats and planes and equipment and soldiers to a force called like BRICS Alliance or whatever they would call it, and combat NATO that way. And America knows that, okay? And they're not going to let that come to pass, because that would be a problem for America beyond belief, okay? They have eliminated a lot of the trading in oil and other things without using US dollars, and that's troubling to America. That normally gets America to go to war. All right? Now, Iran is feeding Russia weapons, missiles, ammunition, various weapons, drones. The big thing is drones, missiles, and like artillery shells and things. Mostly missiles and drones. That's the big. So by Iran manufacturing these things and feeding them to Russia to use in Ukraine, makes NATO have to give more weapons to Ukraine. And more and more and more. And a lot of the countries are saying they're hitting the end of the pile here. Their reserve weapons, their backup weapons, their older weapons that they store for emergency wars and stuff are being depleted, and they're getting ready that they can no longer keep giving them to Ukraine. So America's at a pivot point and has to do something, because once they stop resupplying Ukraine with weapons, like every 2 weeks, every month, they'll be fighting with, bullets and hand grenades, and Russia will overrun them and conquer Ukraine. And then it'll just be, from there, it'll be a chain reaction. So they have to stop Russia. Okay? Or they will lose their standing in Europe. Now, if I was going to call it, the smartest thing that America could do would be to go to an isolationist policy like they did right after World War II up until maybe the very late 50s or beginning 60s. Then they got imperialistic in Africa and, all over the world. But by that I mean, if America, if they didn't mess around with the farmers, with paying them for not growing the crops and stuff like that, they'd have all the food they need. even with an expanded population of 346 million, they'd still have all the food they need. They can make all the weapons they need, hands down. Okay? Any kind of weapon. They could make their own cars and stop importing cars, and there's the end of the balance of payments and problems with buying things from foreign countries, outflowing dollars. They could have kept America on the silver standard and had the most stable, solid currency in the world, but Nixon took them off it in '73. And ever since then, the American economy was never the same. I'm old enough to remember what it was like before in America. You know, and life was easy. People were renting apartments for $50, $70 a month. Volkswagens new was $1,600. Cadillac convertibles were $4,200, $4,400. Corvettes were the same price. Jaguar XKE was the same price. Houses in the 50s in America were $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. What did people make? Well, it wasn't that hard to make $100 a week without having a highly skilled profession. People that had good degrees and were in unions could make $250 a week. You know, government jobs with a college degree was starting at like a GS5, which was about $100 a week. And people were fine with that. Okay, it's when Nixon took away the silver-backed currency. You know, the dollars used to say silver certificate, redeemable for $1 in silver. Silver dollars were in your pocket. The stores gave them to you as change. When my friends and, we got bar mitzvah, the standard bar mitzvah present is they give, bar mitzvah is not in the Bible, it's considered a rite of passage. I think it's in the Talmud, which has nothing to do with the Bible, believe me. It has, when the kid turns 13, he's supposedly reaching age of responsibility, and they would give him a bar mitzvah present of 13 silver dollars, which was a good amount of money back then. It was a good amount of money. Now, you used to have, now they were, I don't know, 98, 99% silver, something like that, or, it was almost pure silver. You used to be able to go to the bank and give them $5 and say, give me 5 silver dollars, and she had them in the tray. She'd give them to you. I used to collect coins as a kid. I used to have so many silver dollars. I had some with different rare mints on them, and, the Utah mint. It was interesting. Now, I'm not old enough to remember the gold standard, but when they had the gold standard, they had the silver too. But they got rid of the gold. But that was even better. People were using gold coins, and the currency said gold certificate redeemable for gold at any Federal Reserve bank. So you could take a $20 bill and bring it in and get a double eagle, which was the largest gold coin they had except for commemoratives, and it was 1 ounce of gold. It was like 98, 99% pure gold, and it was not a huge coin, but it was that was a lot of money. $20. When they were using gold, you could go to the supermarket and load up your car and probably have enough groceries for, a month or a few weeks. When I was in college, we used to buy T-bone steaks for 99 cents a pound. Today, what do you pay? $12, $15? See what they did? The most expensive American car was the Cadillac convertible. I mean, they had Rolls Royces, actually, if you want to know. They were about, in the early 60s, they were about $16,000. Okay. Today, they run up to $400,000. It's a joke. You see what they did? So if America never did all these things and they stayed growing their own food, they had beef, ranchers were wealthy. We had oil in America, oil wells, What was that show, Beverly Hillbillies? Let me tell you a story about a man named Jed, a poor mountaineer who barely kept his family fed. One day he was out hunting something and he shot, I don't remember all the words, and he shot and oil came up, They call it Texas tea oil, right? So if we would have just used our own oil, we would have been fine. We built our own planes. We built our own cars. We built our own weapons. Okay? Some things we were importing. Back then, if you bought a foreign car, people came over and talked to you about why you shouldn't buy a foreign car. They'd say if you buy an American car, you give a guy a job for a week. So back in the 50s, who was buying American cars? Nobody. They were people that were in World War II in the Pacific, but mostly in Europe. They were buying these British cars, MGs and Triumphs, and they were buying motorcycles from Europe and, French cars and, Alfa Romeos just to be cool. Hey, look at me, I got a different car, I'm cool, right? America didn't have a drug problem. They didn't have an immigration problem. They were slamming down immigration hard. There was no immigration problem. America was churchianity and Catholicism, and they didn't have all these other different religions going on in America. There was no gun control to speak of. I was a kid, I used to read Guns and Ammo magazine before President Kennedy got shot. And they used to sell things they'd sell guns mail order. I remember reading the ads. They were selling a thing called a Boys BOYS anti-tank rifle. From World War II surplus, it was a 51 caliber anti-tank rifle that would go through tanks. They were selling them, I don't know, $50, $100, and they were mail order. You sent them a money order, or back then you used to be able to take currency, paper money, and wrap it up with paper, put it in the envelope, and it would get delivered. The post office wasn't full of thieves. You used to buy stuff, you'd take coins, cheap stuff like I was a kid, and you'd tape them to a piece of paper and you put them in the envelope and you mailed them, and they didn't get stolen. Okay? When I grew up in the Bronx, men and women, old people would go to the stores late at night in the warm weather. The stores would be open to 9, 10 o'clock at night in the dark, and they'd walk over there and get what they want. When I was a kid, young teenager, 12, 13 years old, we used to ride the subways all over New York by ourselves. All over the place. It was safe. Okay? They should have stayed isolationist. And then the fear would be, Russia's going to conquer Europe and China will conquer the Pacific and then they'll emerge on us. It wouldn't have worked. America just would have built herself up so strong. Okay? They'd have their Navy all up and down the West Coast, all up and down the East Coast, and all in the Gulf of Mexico and in the Caribbean. And they'd have their air bases and everything. Nobody would bother America. They wouldn't bother it. I mean, it'd be, what are we going to go hit America with? You see, the rule of thumb is that when you invade a country, you need overwhelming force compared to what that country has. If it's tit for tat, you're going to lose. You've got to have more firepower, more troops, more planes, more ships, more missiles than they do. So America decided to go be the great voice and the hammer of the whole earth, as Jeremiah 50:51 is. And now it's the end of them. Okay, so now you got the Pacific. China's harassing the Philippines, Navy ships with their ships. Or actually, maybe it's civilian vessels, but they're flexing their muscles. The people in Taiwan wake up most mornings and they're surrounded by 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Chinese Navy ships, and planes are constantly flying into Taiwan airspace from China, violating their space. Japan says that Japan and China don't like each other. It goes back a long time. A long time. If Taiwan gets hit by China, Japan's going to join in. North Korea is nothing but a weapons factory. And that guy has been loaded for bear to hit South Korea. America has a base in South Korea of 28,000 soldiers. It's a big base, you know. China's 110 miles away from Taiwan. Hitting Taiwan is similar to Russia hitting Ukraine. China and Russia and Iran are setting America up for a fall. America has 11 big aircraft carriers. 3 of them are in dry dock for repairs, modernization, whatever. The 8 other ones are stationed around the world away from America now. You see the snare? I think they have 2 or 3 in the Pacific area. And they've got 2 in the Mediterranean, and then they got others up, you know, by the UK or wherever they are. They may be moving the George Washington over here. I don't know. The George Washington is sort of like offshore from America, so it's sort of kind of like in America. I don't know where the George Washington is ultimately going to wind up. What Russia will do after this war in the Middle East blows up, which I'm going to get into next, Russia will attack Poland and cause America to draw more resources over to Europe and more NATO countries. Italy has aircraft carrier down here. The UK has an aircraft carrier down here. I believe France has one that's moving down here. Not sure on that one. And America has 2. There's a total in excess of 70 warships from America and our allies, mostly NATO countries, in theater in the Middle East now. That's the most warships ever in the Mediterranean area since World War II. You get it? You don't need like 4 aircraft carriers and a total of 70 ships to attack Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthi rebels. I could see 1 aircraft carrier here, maybe, not even, you know, and a few destroyers and missile cruisers, maybe a total of 5 or 6 ships. That's it. I mean, these people have no real navy, they have no real air force, they don't have missile defenses. What do you need it for? It's ridiculous. It's costing probably trillions of dollars to move all this stuff over here. It's to attack Iran. If America doesn't stop Iran, if they let it go another couple of years, Iran would be so powerful, they may not be able to stop Iran. They've got Russia as weak as Russia's been in a long time. Russia's weak. Probably hasn't been this weak in 15 years or so because of Ukraine. But Russia's in on the snare too. He's saving his good military troops and resources and planes and missiles and for what's to come. Russia will attack Poland to cut the weapons for missiles and other things off from Ukraine. And when that happens, he has Ukraine and then he has Poland. And that helps Russia a lot. A lot. Gives him massive buffer zones. The other one he's going to want to take out is Romania, which will go easy because Romania's got a border and it's a danger. Now, Russia can't just get up in the morning and go hit Poland and Romania, because if this thing in the Middle East wasn't going on and if this thing in the Pacific wasn't going on, America would tell Russia to get out of there immediately, or they'll attack Russia, and then they would attack Russia. So Russia and China realized that neither one of them can take out America. But both of them together can stretch America out so bad they can conquer their own backyard and take out America. Now comes Iran and North Korea, and they're in the fracas. North Korea with China and Iran with the Middle East. Now that combination is too much for America. It can't handle it. They think they're going to handle it. But now along comes Biden's open border policy. And it's thought by the FBI reaction to this is massive on such terrorist threats. I think the highest terrorist alert I think that we ever had. They're very worried. First of all, nobody knows how many agents they have, sleeper agents in America. There was many pictures of the border where many of the people coming through were draft age males. Not a lot of families, not a lot of females. They've got thousands of them. Thousands of them. And the Chinese have been there. They're on work visas, student visas, residencies, whatever. I saw a picture. Israel caught 2 Chinese young males in the Hamas tunnels in Gaza. There is no Chinatown in Gaza. There are no Chinese people living there. This was obviously either intelligence agents or military or whatever. Now that's 2 we know about. I don't know how many others are there. Russia's just now talking about removing the Russians out of Gaza, evacuating them. What are the Russians doing there? See what I'm saying? It's all tied together. The kingpins here is China and Russia. The lesser valued assets to this axis of evil, let's call it, is North Korea and Iran. North Korea is a difficult target to hit, to occupy. You can bomb it, but I mean to occupy. And, look, these people go underground. Iran's underground. They're all going underground because if they're underground, they're impervious to missiles and bombs. Unless you're going to use bunker busters, which are expensive, and nobody seems to have an unlimited amount of those. North Korea has artillery inside dense mountains. They lay, maybe 20, 30 yards of track, like train track. And they roll the artillery piece inside a hole they dig in the mountain or a natural cave. So they probably bring it in 15 or 20 feet or something like that. So to get it, you'd have to put an artillery shell or a missile or a drone right in the opening of the cave, which might not work because all they got to do is put a wood door on the cave, and the missile blows up on the door. That's all they got to do. And they might put a metal door up even. So they keep the artillery inside. When they want to start using it, they just push it out on the track, right? Artillery's not heavy like a tank or anything like that. 3 guys easily can push it on a level track. And then they start shooting, and then when they think maybe they're exposed or whatever, they push it back in the cave and they sit down and have themselves a cup of tea and wait for the attack to be over and come out and do it again. Now, this is horrendous terrain for an infantry. When you have mountains, you got to understand that the people in the mountains could lob down on the heads of the troops at the lower altitude. Mortars, missiles, artillery, drones, all kinds of stuff. And you can't take armor up mountains. How? You can't. Tanks don't go up mountains. I mean, you're looking at, inclines that are pretty high, and the terrain is horrible, and if the tank makes a mistake, it rolls over, it will roll down the mountain, they'll all get killed. So you can't put tanks up there, you can't put armored personnel carriers up there. You basically got to go by foot or attack by air. And if they're dug in, how are you going to attack by air? See, so doing a land conquest of North Korea is extremely difficult. Iran is set up in a similar way. It has a lot of mountains and a lot of very, very rough terrain. Okay? So now that you see America is committing, now let me back up. I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit, and let me kind of explain to you what's going on, because I live here in Israel. The Security Cabinet met last night to discuss Lebanon, and they're going to hit Lebanon. Now, the amount of United States cargo planes, they call them C-17s, and there's other designations, coming into Israel has greatly dropped. Okay? The early stages of the Hamas war, there was massive amounts. Now there's some coming in, but very light. Now, what that means is most of the preparation of giving Israel the weapons to attack Lebanon has been accomplished. Okay? Defensive equipment to shoot missiles down and all kinds of artillery and bombs and missiles or whatever we're going to use to take out Lebanon. Lebanon is Hamas on steroids is all. It's not that big a deal. Hamas says they have 100,000 soldiers. The reality is they probably someplace between 50 and 100,000. Let's call it 75,000. And it's about half regulars and half reserves. That's it. That's it. They don't have any respectable Navy to speak of. They have no respectable Air Force. They have no respectable air defense systems. They got anti-tank rockets and they got missiles and rockets, and they say they have very, very sophisticated missiles, but I do not know. Israel is not behaving like they have a lot of sophisticated missiles. Nasrallah one day recently said he had 250,000 missiles. You can't listen to these guys. They're terrorists. Okay. We've evacuated most of the little cities near the border of Lebanon. So infiltrators are not going to get too far. Okay. Paragliders. Nasrallah is threatening us with paragliders. Hamas used those in Israel, but our defenses were down, and it worked, and they landed a few miles into Israel. Okay. I researched paragliders. It's a parachute thing with a seat you sit in with harnesses, and on the back of it, it has a motor with a big thing. It looks like a fan. It's like a propeller, and it pushes the paraglider forward. The good ones, if if Hezbollah bought the good ones, can make about 30 miles an hour. Okay? Crazy people on YouTube take these things up to 10,000 feet. But these are guys that have been flying these things for 5 to 10 years. They definitely have a death wish, and they go up that high. All right? But it's like 1 or 2 people ever do this. So you can forget that. The higher up you go, the colder it's going to get. So it has its limits, especially in the winter. So, you know, if you're going at 30 miles an hour, and that's it, that's full speed, optimum conditions. You don't have wind against you, you don't have rain. You know, that's the best you're going to get. Okay. Now, they can't fly over Israel airspace and expect to survive. We pick up little drones, or maybe drones like this. This is a big thing. The parachute is probably 15 or 20 feet across, and it's probably 4 or 5 feet wide. It's a big, solid matter, okay? And then it's got a seat with a harness, and it's got a motor making heat, making noise, with a fuel tank. They don't run them electrically. They got, you know, diesel or gasoline or whatever. All right? So we're going to pick it up. You'll hear this thing. How high are they going to go? Well, do you think these guys trained for 6 months with these things, like the Green Berets might or something? Of course not. They probably gave them a 1 or 2 week course with it. These are kamikazes. They're not all expected to come home. They expected most of them to die. They're not going to get back. Now, the civilians that fly these paragliders wear a backup parachute. Not all of them do. The crazy ones don't. Why? If they get into a bad wind, the parachute could reverse, turn inside out, and then they come down like a bowling ball. You know, and recovering the parachute is very poor odds. If they get near air traffic, a helicopter or a plane, it can create turbulence that could collapse the parachute, and they come down like a rock. Now, we're not talking about, 747s and, things like that, because they're not going to go near an airport, and they're never going to be at the altitude near there. They're very restricted in America where they could fly these paragliders. They have to stay to rural areas. So if we saw, 50 or 100 of these things flying over from Lebanon, we could just take a few jets and fly by breaking the sound barrier, like 1,500 miles an hour. And the shock and the turbulence will knock all their parachutes out. You see what I'm saying? Then comes Iron Dome, where we get them with the Iron Domes, which is a proximity weapon that puts 2 missiles close to the target and they explode and shrapnel goes in every direction. So they'll get shredded. I'm sure they're not going to have backup parachutes because these are kamikaze missions, okay? They're noisy. If they shut their engine, if they're, 20 feet over the ground, they could shut their engine, okay? And then come down. But if they're 200 or 300 feet and they shut their engine, it could get hairy. If they're 1,500 feet, no, I don't think so. Then they would try to just do a silent glide down, which is a tactic, but they probably wouldn't have much control because of the weight of the thing. And the heat signature would still be there because it would probably take at least 10 or 15 minutes for the heat to go out, of that motor. It's sort of like a car engine. You shut the motor off on your car, you come back in a half hour, it's still hot. Come back in 2 hours, well, it's not going to be that hot, it'll be warm. So this isn't going to conquer Israel. All this is going to do is harass us, and they're going to try to get behind the soldiers' lines, which isn't going to work. They can't attack tanks. They're not going to be the soldiers will hear them coming. They'll just machine gun them with their assault rifles. And we have so many tanks and mobile artillery pieces there. They each have 2 machine guns, a 30 and a 50, and they'll just start spraying like crazy up at them and shred them. And now let's talk about they land. So the soldiers track them, and the helicopters are tracking them. And when they land, what happens? Well, they come down. They're not going to be able to land inside a forest with this thing because they'll get hung up in the trees and then they'll just get shot. They have to go to open space. The soldiers will be on vehicles and be waiting for them, and as they're coming down or when they land, they'll kill them. They are strapped into this thing, a great big heavy thing. And when they go to land, they're moving. I've watched the movies of this, the videos. They're moving at a good rate of speed, and they got to start running with their feet. And then the parachute will collapse, and there's no more momentum, and they can just sit down and unstrap the thing. But they'll be shot. They got to get the thing landed, which the landing process is probably 15 seconds. They're exposed, then they got to stop, then they got to get out of their harness because they can't move with this thing, it's very heavy. They got to get out of their harness, get their weapon out, deploy their weapon, and try to defend themselves. Their chances of survival are pretty minimal. There might be some that escape detection, and then the helicopters and the jeeps and the foot soldiers will just hunt them down. It's not a real threat. They can't fly to Haifa with these things. Not in Israel. They'll be detected. They can't. Where are they going to go? The idea is to go, maybe 2-3 miles behind the enemy line. And they have to do that. They have to cross the enemy line. When we were down in Hamas, there was no enemy line to cross. That's another story. And there was no defenses operating, and they got in. But they're not going to get in. So what we're going to do is probably in the next coming days start pushing further and further into Lebanon. We already have gone 40 kilometers, which is 24 miles. In 2006, we set up a 25-mile buffer zone in Lebanon, where we occupied Lebanon 25 miles in from our border across. And that defeated the ability of their rockets to land in Israel. But they got better rockets today, missiles, rockets. So we might have to go 40 miles in. And they might still have a handful of rockets that can go further than that, I don't know. But we might try a 40-mile buffer zone. That's the general approach of how they'll deal with Lebanon. In the past, they have. Now, this is different. And I'll explain why it's different. And I also want to tell you that I do expect the attack on Iran to be at the same time or in very close proximity to the attack on Lebanon. I'll be right back. That will create tremendous confusion. And that's what America wants. That's a good war tactic. Solid, sound. That's something the Pentagon would do. Now, I heard some people commenting, and they were saying when the cargo planes stop coming in, that's when the war will start. That's not correct. The cargo planes are going to keep coming in during the whole war because they're going to run out of things. They'll need parts, repairs, medical, all kinds of different things. So don't think that. The amount of cargo planes, no, go away. The amount of cargo planes now is very light. So the chances are they're ready. Now, I'm not sure the British aircraft carrier is in theory yet. It might be 2 or 3 days out, I don't know. And the Italian one probably is here by now. Italy is pretty close. Russia just put a warship in the Mediterranean, which I think is nothing. I don't think it means anything. It's just Russia playing game. It's not significant. If Russia put 11 warships in the Mediterranean, it would be reasonably significant, but that still wouldn't cut it. They got over 70 warships. The snare is working on America. No, go away. Leave me alone, guys. You see, if America hit Iran and we don't hit Hezbollah, Iran would activate Hezbollah at any cost to full-scale attack Israel. America doesn't want to see Israel fall in the hands of Iran or Muslim terrorist states, because that would mean they would eventually take over Jordan. Syria already is a Muslim state, and Iraq a Muslim terrorist country. They would, they would get a big nest egg in the Middle East, and China and Russia could help them, and America would be out of the Middle East, and they'll manipulate oil prices. You see, Iran has the Houthi rebels by Yemen, where there's a little choker point from the Red Sea to the Arabian Sea onto Yemen. And a lot of, shut up, Chief, forget it. A lot of civilian vessels, oil tankers, grain ships, container ships, etc., pass through there. Yemen can close it easily with the missiles, artillery, and stuff like that by attacking civilian vessels. And after they attack a few, the insurance companies will say, you can't go through the Red Sea by Yemen. I won't cover your insurance. The vessel itself is insured. The cargo is insured, often by another company. And the crew is insured. There won't be any insurance, and these vessels are very expensive, and they're not going to go. They're just not going to do it. Now, you leave Iran alone in the Persian Gulf, and they'll do the same thing with all the ships in the Persian Gulf that are not friendly to them. So Iran would attack Kuwait and take over Kuwait. They would attack Bahrain and Qatar, although Qatar is probably on their side. And they would attack the UAE. They would attack Saudi Arabia. They would attack Jordan. And they would have a lock on the oil, and you'd be paying $15 or $25 a gallon at the pump, and people couldn't go to work. Economies would collapse. Airfares would be nuts. To fly from Miami to New York, you might have to pay, $1,800 instead of $2 or $3. Everything would fall apart. Okay? Railroad cars run on fuel. Planes use fuel. Everything. It just, the whole economies of North, Central, South America, Europe, will fall apart. Okay? If Iran's allowed to run like this another couple of years, the amount of weapons that they would have built up and everything else would be very, very difficult to overcome. The Americans are not just setting up to go, do bomb Iran, that takeoff from that song, Barbaran. They're not just doing that. It's going to start that way, but they're going to have to do a ground invasion of Iran. Now, will they stay there and occupy it? Probably. They'll restore Iran probably back to the son of the Shah or something like that. No! Stop it! No! Now you're getting upset. You're knocking my water bottle over, right? Where did it go? Great. Thanks, Chief. I appreciate the help you're giving me. So, this is a big war America is brewing. Just going into Iran and dropping 150 bombs and missiles is not going to do anything to Iran. They're all underground. Okay? They're worse than Hamas. Where did my water go, Chief? What the heck did you do with it? Where did it go? I don't even know what you... Oh, there it is. The nuclear facilities are deep underground with lots of hardened concrete. I don't know what they're going to use in terms of bunker buses to break that. I understand they have a 30,000-pound bunker buster bomb. Then that probably will do it. And they probably cost $10 or $20 million, But that's no problem for America. They just print money. So they might start dropping, they might have 10 or 20 of those things they'll drop. But before they drop those, they're going to make sure they have air dominance. They're going to make sure they got air superiority. There's no ground-to-air missiles going to threaten the planes and everything like that. Now, the first phase of this snare in America is let's get America sucked in deep in the Middle East. And that's going to take a few weeks. Not that long. America has no reasonable tactical ability to invade Iran by land. There's no good land country they're going to be able to operate in. That's why all the Navy ships are here. They're going to go in by sea. Would you leave my water bottle alone, for crying out loud? Stop it. They're going to go in by sea. Okay? In the south of Iran, the Persian Gulf. Before they do that, they got to get rid of a lot of Iran's assets. The 1,500 plus go-fast boats are a threat. It's a serious harassment threat. Okay? And Iran has, 40 ships. They got Navy ships. They're going to have to go. You're going to see devastation of Iran's military assets unless they lay down. Now, if this starts and Iran says, okay, white flag, we surrender, what would happen? Well, first of all, it's not happening. Okay, but if it did, America would want to go in and do a regime change. And set up something like a democracy or put the Shah's son in there or something like that. and start liberating the people. So the women would go to the beach wearing bikinis, and they'd go to the movie theaters and watch Stallone and Schwarzenegger, and they would have European TV on their cable, and all the rock stars would go over there and do concerts. All the depravity would set in. You understand? There'd be porn on their internet. Bars would open up, and people would sit at the sidewalk cafes and have a glass of wine, or espresso, or cappuccino, and a piece of cake, and all of the. It would look like a European country. They would try to get it to look like Italy or France or something like that. All right? That's not happening. You can forget that one. They're not surrendering. Okay? Who's leading the war in Gaza? Hamas. The leaders of Hamas that are sitting in Qatar, who's an American ally, in the 5-star hotels running the war. Why aren't they being kidnapped and taken hostage or imprisoned? They're war criminals. They engineered the October 7th thing. Why are they not being captured? Because this plot runs a lot deeper than you think it does on October 7th. Okay? A lot deeper. So they're still getting away with it. Well, the Iranians, the leaders, the big shots, they're going to be underground. I mean, they're going to be really underground, not like Hamas. They're going to be underground probably 100 feet, but they're going to have lots of fortifications above them. It's not going to be simple to get them. A 30,000-pound bunker buster bomb, I'm quite confident, would at least damage them, if not kill them. They have places for their few aircraft that is a runway that goes underground into an underground hangar that's all fortified with heavy concrete and everything, and it's below the surface. But they don't have an air force. You see, Iran doesn't have it. They have 346 planes. There's probably 6 or 7 different types of planes they have, fighters and warplanes, that come from different countries and different time periods. They're Cold War era planes predominantly. And many of these planes are not in service. They don't have the maintenance equipment supplies. They don't have the parts. So maybe they could fly half their planes. Maybe 200 of them, maybe 250, I don't know. But they're not modern jets. They're not going to engage Israeli or American jets in dogfights. They'll get shredded. They're not going to evade American missiles, anti-aircraft missiles. They can't do anything. If a country like Azerbaijan decides to invade Iran, they could fight. Their planes are competent to go fight the ground forces of Azerbaijan and so forth like that. They're good for stuff like that. But when you're going to try to use them against F-35s, F-22s, B-1s, B-2s, forget about it. There's no game. What good is their Navy going to do without air support? How's their Navy going to fend off American ships? They'll try. They probably have immature anti-ship missiles they'll throw at the American ships. So what? They're not going to work. You understand the scope of this? There's 40 or 60 Iranian warships that got to go to Davy Jones's locker, plus 1,500 go-fast boats. America needs to bomb the beach, the south of Iran. Okay? Like a World War II attack. But before they could get to the beach, if they just bomb the beach and then they try to bring troops in with Navy vessels, the Iranian warships will go after those troop carriers. And they're not going to be able to, they got to get the boats out of the picture. And they have the equipment to do it. They're probably going to do it predominantly by air to avoid damage to their naval vessels. Israel might join in. I don't know. I expect to some extent they probably will. So the first thing they'll do is attack the Navy vessels in Iran. They'll need a provocation. They'll have one. They put 5 Coast Guard cutters over there the other day and 1 anti-mine ship. And those Coast Guard cutters will probably start interdicting Iranian ships. There'll be a provocation. The fight will go. And those are not valuable ships to America in terms of, like, they're not an Arleigh Burke class destroyer and stuff. So they'll have plenty of air cover, and or they may not have a provocation. They may just do it without a provocation. The ships get disabled, then they bomb the daylights out of the beach, and they probably got to go. They probably got to go in from the beach a good 25 or 40 miles to stop missiles from raining down on the beachhead. Okay? So there's going to be a lot of missiles and a lot of bombs flying. Then they'll use they have 2 Expeditionary Force Marines in these landing aircraft carrier ships, the small aircraft carriers. They'll probably have about 3,500 Marines, and they'll land them initially on the beach. Special Forces will probably sneak around in the beginning to make sure everything's okay. They'll probably come in by sea, under the water with scuba gear, reconnaissance, everything. And then they'll put the 3,000 Marines in to get a hold on the beach. And that 3,000 number may go to 6,000, probably will. So they could get some tanks in with these guys, get some artillery, maybe mobile artillery, armored personnel carriers, equipment, have them set up on the beach with lots of air cover 24/7. Okay? Then they'll start bringing more and more guys in with ships, helicopters, and they'll load the beach up, and then they have an incursion. Just conquering the beach doesn't shut Iran down. Iran's got a big city called Tehran with 16 million people. Could you imagine what that'll be like? It'll be full of IRGC on the roofs and the windows and the doors, just like what we're going through in Gaza, but worse. It's going to be a nightmare. Can America just bomb Iran and then go away? Yes. Will it work? I doubt it. Will it cripple Iran? Yes. How bad? Not that bad. They can blow up a lot of munition factories and cut the flow of weapons off to Russia, making it harder for Russia to fight Ukraine. That's one plus, but that's not. You don't bring 70 plus warships over here with I don't know how many airplanes and soldiers for that, If they just wanted to do that, they would just go in with stealth bombers. No, they want more than that. They they need a regime change. Just like we can't leave Hamas in Gaza, they can't leave the mullahs running Iran. So they attacked yesterday IRGC, regular Iranian soldiers, And that's the beginning of the escalations. And we're escalating in Lebanon. I think the attack on Lebanon by Israel may be joined by America. It's a possibility. And Israel may join the attack in Iran. It's a possibility. You've got to wait and watch. But Israel's not going to be a major contributor to the attack in Iran. They may just contribute some F-35s and some bombing runs and things of this nature. Maybe they'll put 1 or 2 submarines in the Persian Gulf or something like that, or 1 or 2 warships that we have. I don't know. The best thing for America would be that we attack Lebanon at the same time or in close proximity America attacks Iran. Now, I'm not so sure it's going to happen today or tomorrow. It may take a week or 10 days or something like that, 2 weeks, but it's not a long way off. Okay. Iran satellites have been consistently attacking the American bases in Iraq and Syria and threatening to expand and hit other bases. Saudi Arabia shot down a Houthi missile yesterday, so coming towards Israel. So they're definitely not going to side with Iran. They cast their lot with America and Israel. The UAE does everything that Saudi Arabia does, so you can take it to the bank. The UAE is going to go with Saudi Arabia, with the Americans in Israel. Now comes Jordan. America is staging a massive amount of military equipment, supplies, and troops in Jordan. So rest assured, Jordan is right now in their camp. Okay? Lebanon is not in their camp. Turkey is a crackpot situation. They don't trust Turkey. Okay? They might use the Turkey NATO air base in Incirlik. I think it's Incirlik or something like that. Or just no E, just a K. They might use that base. They have in the past. They might use it, though they may not trust Turkey. Probably won't trust them. Iraq is on the side of Iran. So is Syria. Yemen is on the side of Iran. Egypt and Jordan will eventually turn on us very shortly, but not today. Algeria is going to go with Iran, but they're not highly significant. They'll try to shut down maritime traffic in the Mediterranean, and they'll wind up getting bombed. The idea would be to draw America in deep in the Middle East, have America use up a lot of its resources, and have its equipment and troops there. Then it's just a matter of time when Russia and China start up, and they'll make sure that the fight is not in their home country, i.e. Taiwan, i.e. Poland, something like that. Okay? So America will be more distracted. Then ultimately they attack America. China does not have to really attack Taiwan seriously to get America to react. So they may not want to conquer South Korea and Japan and Taiwan and Guam and the Philippines. But they might want to have North Korea attack South Korea and them start, lightweight attacks on Taiwan to draw American forces even deeper out here. And then they forego attacking these other countries and just get rid of the daughter of Babylon first. Then they figure they can conquer the world when America's out of the picture. Israel is going to go to the back burner, I think. They're not going to, in the Middle East battle, Iran and the satellites aren't going to be that worried about Israel, because they're going to figure when they get rid of America, they could always come back and finish off Israel. So they're not that worried about that. Let me check the chat. Iran knows this is coming. They know they're going to be under attack. They have no doubt. They're not the village idiots, okay? Let me look in the chat for a minute, make sure if I have questions, I'd like to answer them. I did not know there was a tsunami that hit Brazil yesterday. No, thank you for bringing that up. I did not know. Thank you. How do Turkey relate to Lebanon? Well, they're both the same kind of Muslim, Shiite, I believe. And Turkey verbally cares about Lebanon, but will he actually do anything? Turkey will join in the fight eventually, but maybe not in the first go-round, but eventually, against Israel. They're not bosom buddies, Lebanon and Turkey. Neither is Hamas bosom buddies, but it gives them lip service, you know. Bangladesh, wow. Okay, looks like I'm good in the chat. So it could be as soon as America starts getting entrenched in the Middle East, which could be this week, China starts the war in the Pacific and Russia starts up in Europe. They could do it right away to create a lot of confusion for America before they get deep-seated in the war. It would make perhaps more sense for them to wait until America starts using up a lot of its bombs and missiles and stuff like that, and then get into it. But I don't know. Iran is going to survive anything except a big ground invasion, which they say takes 600 to 800,000 ground troops. NATO, I say, best case, could come up with 100,000 troops, so it would leave America with 500,000. I mean, I don't think NATO could come up with 200,000. I think 100,000 would be a push. Now, they might get the UAE and Jordan and Saudi Arabia to come up with Kuwait and stuff, but they're going to come up with like 3,000 each or something like that. And, you know, here's 20 tanks and here's 10 planes. They're not going to come up with significant, you know, numbers. Maybe they can come up with 200,000 soldiers. And then America would have to come up with at least 400,000. Without a ground invasion, nothing will happen. What could they do? They could hit oil wells in Iran. They could hit oil refineries. They could hit those ports where they offload the oil into tanker ships. They could wipe out their navy and the go-fast boats. They could hit various military bases, destroy their air defense systems, which will just get rebuilt over time. You know, things like this. America's not going to go bomb apartment houses like Russia does in Ukraine. They're not going to do that. They have to traverse 600 miles from the beach, the coast area in the south of Iran to get to Tehran. 600 miles through mountainous, rocky, horrible terrain. Horrendous. That's why I don't think Iran is seriously worried about this. And when it starts, Iran will try as hard as it can to have its various puppet militias attack American. Well, they'll attack. What Iran will go after is to try to have the Houthis attack the Saudi oil fields, which they've hit twice in the past. If they shut down the biggest Saudi field, Aramco, you're going to see gas go from about 85 a gallon to perhaps 100, 105, something like that. Not devastating. They're going to have to deal with the Houthis too. But the Houthis are not that easy to deal with because they're going to be also in tunnels. But they could incapacitate them with airstrikes and drive them underground and just keep them there, so they're not going to be able to interfere with shipping. Are they going to do a ground invasion and clean out the house? I doubt it. Saudi might. Saudi Arabia may, with American help, decide it's a good idea to go in and clean out the Houthis because they were a threat to Saudi Arabia. So, what I'm telling you is, people would say what you're describing here is a world war. And what I will say to you is that is one way of phrasing it, but I'm going to take a break and come right back and explain to you that we're in the year of recompenses, which is the same year as the year of redemption, and give you the scriptures, which is quite a few, to show you that. And that's what's really going on. And in that year, there's a day of vengeance, which I believe is on the United States, which is the daughter of Babylon, and that will happen too. And then Jeremiah 30, verse 11 will happen in this year. And that reads, the Lord will destroy all the nations he dispersed the Israelites to. And that means over the many centuries. And that's a good 125 nations. And this is the Lord having a controversy with the nations over Zion. And the Lord says he's going to deal with the Goyim in a way they never heard. This is God getting rid of his enemies. This is God getting ready to raise Israel up to be the head of the nations. This is God getting ready to fulfill his covenant given to Israel in Genesis 15, where we get the land from the Euphrates to the Nile, and then from the Mediterranean, I believe, to the Persian Gulf, which makes Israel about 100 times bigger than what it is now. And we're leading to Zechariah 12, not Gog and Magog. Don't believe this Gog and Magog junk. It comes down the road, okay? There has to be a temple for Gog and Magog. The 10 tribes are already back in Israel with Gog and Magog, so the second Exodus happened. That didn't happen. It says we're living in peace and rest without bars and walls. You got to be a lunatic to teach people that's Gog and Magog today. It can't be. We're living in bomb shelters and everything. We're not living in peace and safety and rest without bars and walls. That's absurd. Absurd. Sheer absurdity. It's not going to Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog will be more than 10 years away from Zechariah 12, which is weeks away, perhaps, or days. That's when they surround Jerusalem and Judah and lay siege to it, but they don't actually attack. And then you read the two witnesses burn them up on the right hand and the left hand. That specifically is found in Zechariah 12:6. And God pours his spirit out on them in Jerusalem in the house of David in Zechariah 12:10. And they become believers, and that's the beginning of the birth of a nation in a day. The Spirit pours out of them. They become born again like you. What happened in 1948 was not a born again experience. It was a demonic UN deciding to take a piece of land and change the name. Come on, wake up. That's not the nation born in a day. That's the church's theory for you. Churches never talk about Zechariah 12. They don't want you to know it exists because the two witnesses are working there, burning the enemies up on the right hand and the left hand. This is the end days of the churches all over the world. Why? They're teaching crap to the people. That's why. And it's not going to come to pass. There ain't going to be their pre-trib rapture or mid-trib rapture or post-trib rapture. Yeshua said 4 times. John 6:39, John 6:40, 44, and 54. All that the Father gave him, he raises up on the last day. Everybody goes up on the same day, the last day. There's no multiple raptures. You can't How do I debunk multiple raptures when they don't exist? It's like saying Mickey Mouse is one of the prophets. There's no place that says Mickey Mouse is a prophet. There's no place that has multiple raptures. They play with you with the white throne judgment, this and that, all this idiocy. Yeshua said 4 times, everybody goes up on the same day, the last day. Now, if it's really the last day, which it is, there are no more days. So this happens after the millennium is over, after Satan is released, gathers the nations together around Jerusalem and New Jerusalem like the sand of the sea. Father God Jehovah from heaven sends down fire, burns the whole universe up. We meet them in the air because there's no place to stand, and we go up on a cloud to heaven, and the dead rise and everything. Okay? And that's the last day, and that's when the rapture is. Don't let them tell you that's not the rapture, that's the last day. There is no left behind rapture. It's a lie. And they lie to you, and of course they hate you. That's why they tell you these lies. That's in Proverbs someplace. I don't remember the verse. When they lie to you, they hate you. And they hate you. The prayer requests have turned into curse requests. I could go on and on and on. This is the time the church is going to fall apart. I believe it was in Sudan the other day, 700 Christians got killed. Mostly 700 people got killed by, it was either Nigeria or Sudan. 700 people got killed, mostly Christians, churchianity, right? Now, you're not going to go over there in that country and tell the people there's going to be a preacher of rapture anymore before the trouble. They're going to get pretty confused about that. Why doesn't God protect the church, these church people? Because they're not his. They're not his people. 2 Corinthians 11:4. They have another Jesus, they have another gospel, and they receive another spirit. They think they're believers. They're the tares and the wheat. They grow up together and they look the same. Now, that tares and the wheat parable has to be before the millennium, because in the millennium, how are the tares going to be growing up with the wheat when the wheat's in New Jerusalem, and you ain't getting into New Jerusalem if you're a tare? So it has to be before then. I hope you understand that. Okay? They're going to start waking up in the church, and they're going to come out. But what a time to come out. It's going to be sheer chaos going on. The D.O.B., daughter of Babylon, is going down for the count, never to rise up again. Jeremiah 50:51, Isaiah 47, Isaiah 13. It's never coming back. And the people are going to come out. The true believers are going to come out with the Israelites, and they're going to go to the wilderness, and they're going to pass under the rod and enter into the bond of the covenant. The bad ones will be cut off on the internet, and then they'll come into Israel. This is the gospel. This isn't what the church teaches. This is the gospel. The church doesn't teach right. Okay? Go ye forth into all the world and take money from the people that want to enter the kingdom of God and buy a big building. That's not the gospel. You're in the days of Elijah. They have started. Elijah's one of the 2 witnesses. Apostle John's another. They've started. You'll realize it shortly. They haven't. It's begun. So, this is the real gospel, not the crap they teach. Okay? They teach garbage. All right? Now, I don't know what their position on the war is, but I have seen pictures of individual churches with Israeli flags saying they support Israel. That's nice. They support Israel. Great. They pray for Israel. Oh, okay. Does God hear the prayers from these churches? I doubt it. They live in sin. Why would he hear their prayers? They do variance, which in Galatians 5:19-21 says that those that do such things will not enter the kingdom of God. Variance is having different doctrinal statements. We're pre-trib, we're mid-trib, we're post-trib. We baptize in the Holy Spirit, we don't. We pray in tongues, we don't. Ad nauseum. That's a house divided unto itself shall not stand. Then they do seditions in Galatians 5:19-21, which means divisions. A denomination is a perfect division. People that do these denominations shall not enter the kingdom of God. No, I just closed out 2 billion people. The Catholics and the Evangelical Pentecostal churches total about 2 billion people. Then you could add in the Mormons and the JWs and all of the others, okay? They're not going to make it. There's going to be some that are going to come out from them, I believe, but the majority aren't going to make it. Broad and wide is the road to destruction, and many find it. Straight and narrow is the path, and few find it. Okay? It's coming. It's right in your face. It's coming. It's coming. You don't have much time to wait. Oh, let me see what this is for a second. I'll be right back in a second, guys. Just give me be very fast. I got to deal with this message. Hey kids. I want to go to the Bible now. Let's go to Isaiah 34, verse 8. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, the year of recompenses. Recompenses is Strong's Hebrew number 7966, is shalom, you would pronounce it. Retribution, payback, reward. Now with the Lord, a reward goes both ways. There's a good reward and a bad reward. So the recompenses is the payback. And for what? For the controversy over Zion. Now the word for Zion is Strong's number in the Hebrew 6726. And it means a parched place. So that means the Israel before it's restored. And it's parched much of the year here. It's pronounced Zion in English. It's Zion in the Hebrew. And the word controversy is 7379 Strong's in the Hebrew. It means a fight. They don't want Israel to be the head of the nations. Something like 160 out of 193 UN nations recognize a Palestinian state. Got it? That's the land that Jehovah made a covenant to give. They want Jehovah shown to be a covenant breaker. Get it? We'll keep reading these type of scriptures. Now we go to Jeremiah 25:30, verse 31. A noise. Let's look up that word noise. 7588 in the Hebrew, Strong's number. Shaon. A roar, an uproar. The implication is destruction. A horrible noise. The implication here is destruction. A noise shall come even to the ends of the earth. For Jehovah hath a controversy with the Goyim, the nations. He will plead with all flesh. Now, let's interpret the word plead. It's 8199 in the Hebrew Strong's number. Shaphat is the pronunciation. It's not plead. He will judge or punish. They twisted it. He will judge all flesh. He will give them that are wicked to the sword. The way he does it is with the sword. That means they fight each other. Here it is on a silver platter. Verse 32, the next verse. Thus saith Jehovah. Get this on. Thus saith Jehovah of armies, behold, evil shall go forth from nation to nation, goyim to goyim, and a great whirlwind shall be raised up from the coasts of the earth. And the slain of Jehovah shall be at that day from one end of the earth even unto the other end of the earth. They shall not be lamented, mourned, neither gathered nor buried. They shall be dung upon the ground. This is some of a curse of the law. The bodies are left for the beasts to eat. This is verse 34. Howl, you shepherds, and cry and wallow yourselves in the ashes, you principal of the flock. This is predominantly talking about the Israelites, and it's could have some applicability to the false pastors, but it's very consistent with Ezekiel 34. And wallow yourselves in the ashes, you principal of the flock. The word for principal is 117 adir. Let's see how Strong's treats this word. The powerful, the government leaders, the rich ones, For the days of your slaughter and of your dispersions are accomplished, and you shall fall like a pleasant vessel. The pleasant vessel is like a vase or a nice plate. Hold it over a tile floor and drop it, and then you get the idea. And the shepherd shall have no way to flee, nor the principal of the flock to escape. A voice of the cry of the shepherds and howling of the principal of the flock shall be heard, for the Lord hath spoiled their pasture. And the peaceable habitations are cut down. That's the Beverly Hills places in America, in Israel, I guess. Because of the fierce anger of Jehovah. He hath forsaken his cover. That means he's no longer hiding in the background from the people. He's open. The two witnesses are launched, calling all the plagues down, fire coming out of their mouth. That's only attributable to Jehovah. Although the church will call him the beast and the false prophet early on, probably. But it's attributable to Jehovah, and people will know that. The idea is that they will, when this is over, they will know his name is Jehovah. He hath forsaken his cover as the lion. Could that be an analogy to the Lion of Judah? You bet. For their land is desolate because of the fierceness of the oppressor and because of his fierce anger. That's Jeremiah 30, verse 11. He will destroy all the nations he dispersed the Israelites into. Not everybody will get killed, but these lands are destroyed. When you read Hosea 6, 1 and 2, God punished Israel for 2,000 years because of them arranging to have the Romans kill the Messiah, the Son of God, his firstborn son. And the punishment was a double portion, 2,000 years. Now we get a double reward, a double portion in the good stuff. And that's just about over. We're in the year of recompenses. We're in the 4th month of it. That's what the Lord told me specifically. So, I mean, at the time it was around August 1st. So we're in about the 4th month of it now. It only has 12 months. And it's the same year as the year of redemption. And I'll show you why I say that. Isaiah 61 verse 2. See, you know more than the generals do about what's going to happen. They could read it, it wouldn't make any sense. They could listen to me, they wouldn't get it. They don't have the Holy Spirit. 61 verse 1 in Isaiah. The Spirit of Jehovah, of Adonai Elohim upon me, because Jehovah hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek, not the rich. He had sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, sound like you, the meek and the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison. This is the dry bones. They were there for their punishment, but they get resurrected life from the dead again. And they come back and they'll be in Israel. And that's Ezekiel 37, the first half. But that's a whole other Bible study that I've done several times. The opening of them that are bound. This is when Yeshua died, he went down to preach to them. He was preaching to the Israelites that were in the prison down there, the dry place where the rich man was, and saw Father Abraham and said, send, what was his name, Lazarus the beggar, to put a drop of water on my tongue. It's so hot here. That's where they are. To proclaim the acceptable year of Jehovah and the day of vengeance. The acceptable year is not the Jubilee year or the Yuval year. In several places, two that I know of, the Lord says, in Israel he will accept you. In Israel. Acceptable year means they return to Israel, i.e. the second Exodus in this year. The acceptable year of Jehovah and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn. Now, the day of vengeance may be just the daughter of Babylon, and it may be these other countries too. It may be all of them. But I have an inclination it's probably the daughter of Babylon, because that happens in a day, in a single day, in a moment, it says. To appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto... Now, the mourning in Zion is the last part of Zechariah 12. After they look upon the one whom they have pierced, they mourn for him, because they realized they were slandering and blaspheming Yeshua's name, and now they realize he was really their Messiah. So they go into mourning. But God stops it because he forgave them. He blinded their eyes and stopped up their ears, so they would go through the 2,000-year punishment of Hosea 6, 1 and 2. So he appoints unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes. That's mourning. They throw ashes on themselves. Beauty, that's the eternal life. When you see Yeshua, you shall be like him. In John 6:40, it says, those that believe, that see Yeshua, will be changed. They'll have everlasting life. It doesn't say change, it says everlasting life. And in Zechariah 12:10, first he pours his Spirit out on them, and then they look upon the one whom they have pierced, and they have eternal life, and that's where the beauty is. I know this contradicts the church, but the church contradicts your Bible. The oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. So instead of mourning, they're going to have the garment of praise. Praise the Lord! Oh, you'll be praising... You'll be jumping. Malachi 4, the Son of Righteousness shall arise with healing in his wings, and you shall jump out of the stall like the baby calf. Same event. The appearing of the Son of Man. For the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of Jehovah, that he might be glorified. And they shall build the old wastes. The old waste is not bomb damage from Lebanon last week, okay? It's from way back, okay? They shall raise up the former desolation, and they shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations. That's not current war damage. I do not expect Israel to take much war damage at all. Okay? There's a lot of these old cities that are just ruins today. I've seen them. And strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the alien, the foreigner, shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. But you shall be named the Kohanim of Jehovah, the priests of Jehovah. Men shall call you the ministers of our Elohim. You shall eat the riches of the Goyim, and in their glory shall you boast yourselves, in their glory, in their wealth and riches. And the word for that is actually, no, it actually says glory, so it says glory. For your shame, what is their glory? What is the Saudi Arabian king's glory? His palaces, his cars, his jet. We'll have all that stuff from them. The wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. They shall rejoice in their portion, therefore in their land they shall possess the double everlasting joy. Why everlasting joy? When those that believe, when they look upon Yeshua, shall have everlasting life. And that's what happens in Zechariah 12:10. And that's how are you going to have everlasting joy without everlasting life? Doesn't make sense, does it? Shall be unto them. For I, Jehovah, love judgment. I hate robbery. Well, that would include all the governments of the world today, I think. Robbery for burnt offering. Oh, that's different. And they steal goods and then make burnt offerings with the money they got. I will direct their work in truth, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them. And the seed shall be known among the Goyim, and their offspring among the people. All that see them shall acknowledge them, that they are the seed which Jehovah hath blessed. I will greatly rejoice in Jehovah. My soul shall be joyful in my God, for he hath clothed me with the garment of salvation. He hath covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decketh himself with ornaments, and as a bride adorned herself with her jewels. Okay, let's go to another one. Isaiah 63. Who is this that cometh from Edom? No, I don't want that part. Let me get where I want to go. Isaiah 63:4. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. See, we hear of the day of vengeance with the year of recompenses, and now we're hearing it with the year of redemption. So that leads me to believe it's both the same year. It starts with the recompenses, and then it'll flow into the redemption. We're not quite yet there at the redemption. It'll begin with Zechariah 12:10. And I looked, and there was none to help, and I wondered that there was none to uphold. Therefore mine own arm brought salvation unto me, and my fury it upheld me. And I will tread down the people in mine anger. Whoa. And make them drunk in my fury, and I will bring down their strength to the earth. Okay. Now the churches don't talk about this stuff because they don't want you to know it. That's why they hate you. They don't want you to know it. They want you. What do they spend their time talking about? Well, we're going to go up and deliver from the wrath to come up into heaven, and we'll attend the Jews' wedding feast of the Lamb with their Jewish Messiah, because we're better than them, for 7 years. And they're going to go through the tribulation. The man of sin will come and suck them in and break a covenant with them. And they're going to either take the mark of the beast and go to the lake of fire forever, or they're going to have their heads cut off. Well, gee, I guess no Israelite would ever survive if that was true. How about that, huh? Pretty faulty logic from them. And that's what they talk about. And no sense of anything. They don't know that that happens to the nations, to the Jew first, then the Greek. They don't get any of this. They just twist and turn it to make Schofield the king of doctrine, or Darby, the predecessor of Schofield. Hang on a minute, I want to go to Matthew 24. Where in 24 is a good question. I got to find the verse. Okay. Let me go in the chat and see if I have any questions or anything. The tares are the misinterpreted word. It means darnel, which is a plant that looks like wheat, but it's not. And it has black, unedible grain in it. And it's not very heavy, and it stands up straight when it bears fruit because it bears bad fruit. The wheat has good grain in it. It's very heavy, and it bends over when it's bearing good fruit, just like the believers get weary. That's the real meaning of what these things are. No, it's not the staff of Moses with them. It's just putting the two of them together, um, making them one stick. It's a figure of speech. It's not a real throwback to the staff of Moses, no. Okay, we got somebody here that's preaching junk. No Bible reference, no nothing. I'm just going to do away with that. Don't need the time waster. You see how they filled up the chat? That's the sign of the false believer. They have no interest in hearing me. They have an interest in preaching their garbage. So they come in here and just fill the chat up. That's how you can spot them. No, I can't stand Facebook. I have nothing to do with Facebook. No. Let me see if anything just recently happened in the war and stuff while we're all together. I'll just scan the news real quick and see if anything good happened. There's been at least 48 attacks so far on American bases in Iraq and Syria, and there's been at least 56 injured. The Lebanese shot at a group of 8 electricity workers up near the border with Lebanon yesterday, and 8 were wounded. It was a shoulder-fired anti-tank missile that got them with shrapnel, and one of the electrical workers is missing, and there's a fear he was taken hostage. That will go very badly for Hezbollah if that's the case. See, Israel basically needs to take a preemptive strike at Hezbollah. Otherwise, some point in time when America attacks Iran, they'll attack Israel. So when you do a preemptive strike, you're going to minimize the amount of damage that Hezbollah can do in a counterattack. It might be a massive preemptive strike with 200 planes with America and Israel. It could be unbelievably huge. That would be, of course, designed to show Iran what's in it for them if they keep it up. Residents of Israel up by the border of Lebanon that have not yet evacuated were told to just go in their bomb shelters until further notice. Well, you know, that can mean stay very close to your bomb shelter, but the amount of warning time they're going to have is going to be like Gaza, 15 seconds or something like that. Where if the Houthis shoot a missile, you got a long time, No, I don't think anything big time happened. The amount of rockets flowing is down, but it's not that low anymore. So maybe they're able to construct rockets underground in their tunnels, or maybe they have a big stockpile, or maybe both, or I don't know. So you're in the year of recompenses. You're in the birth pangs, leading to the birth of the nation in a day. The continuing whirlwind of the Lord, which is a storm or a tempest, is falling on the head of the wicked. All of the Lord has a controversy with Zion, with the nations over Zion. All this is happening at the same time. You got to get that. And it's going to get very, very, very confusing very quickly. And they're not going to know, the nations aren't going to know if they're coming or going. So America will create confusion by hitting Lebanon, the Houthis, and Iran at approximately the same time. The Gaza war is about to start dying down. I mean, it's a matter of days, and the rockets are going to stop coming out of a handful of days. And it's not going to take long. And then what will happen is things will be easier for us. And at that point, they may try to barter the hostages for a get-out-of-jail-free card, which isn't going to happen. And we got to see how that goes. They may not do that. They may fight to the last man. I don't know. I think they're going to suffer greatly before this is over. Okay. So I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. I'm Moshe. My wife is Rivka. Please pray for our peace, safety, protection, and joy, and pray we don't have to go in bomb shelters. Pray for the animals and pets, which are all rescues, that they be happy, healthy, and whole. Thank you for those giving offerings. Offering information's in the description box under the video, and I also put it up in the chat. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and I'll keep you posted. Make sure you're subscribed, and you'll get notices if something happens suddenly. I'll come on, but you should expect within days the war to blow up. Okay, I am out.